once again.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. I am Lisa Conger, your lay leader this morning. Whether you are a longtime member or visiting for the very first time, we are glad you are here. We value each individual's unique background, beliefs, and lifestyle. We welcome also those of you who are joining us through the internet. We are glad you are here. Our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world. Or in short, to create community, find meaning, work for justice. I have 3 announcements before I introduce and welcome back to the pulpit our guest speaker. First, this is the last call for the community auction. If you've been putting off donating an item, now is the perfect time to remedy that. We have about 60 items donated so far with a goal of 90 donations for this year's auction. We'd love to include your auction item. We do ask that this is an item that creates connection or a community event. Could be a poetry circle, could be a dinner, could be a gathering at your home. Please locate the table at the back of the church. It has balloons there. And fill out a form describing your contribution. Please do it today or get it to the church by this Wednesday. The auction team thanks you. The film Occupation of the American Mind, the film Todd wants us to consider showing to the greater Spokane area, will be shown today in the chapel at 12:30. It's about 84 minutes long, and if you are interested in this, I encourage you to see it. And the last announcement is to invite you to a poetry showcase tonight here at this church. 4 poets will be reading, including Reverend Linda Whittenberg and myself. Dennis Held is hosting, and he will be interviewing us at 6:30 with the reading beginning at 7. The cost is free, but if you'd like to bring some food donations, that would be greatly appreciated. And we hope to see you back here tonight. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce and welcome our guest, the Reverend Linda Whittenberg. Reverend Linda was called as a minister to our church here in Spokane in 1989. During her tenure, we departed the Glover House and built our new church, this building that we're in. After leaving Spokane, she was extension consultant for the Mountain Desert District of the UUA. Since retiring, she and her husband, Robert Wilbur, have lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Coming from a long line of quilters, Linda has moved into the world of art quilting, which these days happily absorbs a good part of her time. As a poet, she is the author of 5 volumes of poetry and has made writing a priority, rising before dawn each day to spend time with words. I know we can expect poetry to be woven into the sermon today. Welcome back, Linda. Now, please take a moment to meet and greet those around you. Please especially welcome those who are new to the church. Thank you. We'll have more time to greet one another and share our stories during social hour after the service, which as always includes great coffee and good conversation. And before we even go further, someone left this bag outside their car. I think it has car keys in it with no identification. So if this belongs to you, come up to see me after the service. Okay. All right. We now turn from our warm and informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth is lost and a shadow of doubt wherever it has been found. Our opening words are about poetry. Poetry condenses, compacts, crystallizes experience and insight. The best poetry is translucent, prismatic, kaleidoscopic. It lets light in and then splits it up, plays with it in order to reveal something of the world previously unnoticed or insufficiently celebrated or inadequately mourned. That's by John G. Stackhouse. In honor of having a poet in the pulpit, I'd like to share a poem of mine. And the Emily refers to Emily Dickinson. Under the same stars, we are born of light, the radiant air of this sun's exuberant burning, and we come from shadow, the womb's dark cave of flesh and blood, which pulses in sync with the twinkle of the stars domed above us. What meaning matters more than love? All I know of love is all there is, writes dark-eyed Emily alone in her room. Nearly 2 centuries later, a sister poet contemplates under the same stars the sorrows that will wait us and the light of love that lifts us, and longingly she reaches for her pen.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. You may not realize it, but we sing poems in this congregation every Sunday. Most things in our hymnals are actually poems set to music. So please rise as you're willing and able to sing a new one. Michelini will play the melody. Please rise.
Good morning, everybody. So normally we call the children up, but today I'm going to ask if all of our kids stay in their seats and stay around people you love, snuggle up next to somebody. Yeah, we snuggle good here. All right. The story I'm going to read to you today is called Everywhere and All Around. I'm going to tell you that the story is a little bit sad. It's about someone who lost their mom, okay? So that's why I want you to stay around your families and snuggle up, okay, with people who love you. Everywhere and all around. Yolanda's mom has died, passed away, gone. Yolanda misses her very much. So much, there are no words to describe how much. One moment, Yolanda has been able to talk with her. The next, she stopped breathing. Her heart stood still. Yolanda stayed with her for a very long time, holding her hand, and it slowly grew cold. Her mom was still there, yet she wasn't. People don't like to talk about death. They'd rather be quiet. Quiet like her mom is now. But Yolanda doesn't want to be quiet. She wants to know where her mom is. And she has to be somewhere, right? If you look for me, my darling, you will find me. So Yolanda decided to go looking for her mom who has died. She starts with Julian, her 4-year-old brother. Maybe he knows where mom is. His bedroom door is ajar, and she hears him talking to mom. How is that possible? Yolanda swings the door open, and Julian is sitting cross-legged on his bed. Across from him is a bear. Julian is talking to Bear. Mom is Bear, and Bear is mom. Yolanda goes back downstairs, and Dad is sitting at the table drinking a cup of coffee, and Yolanda sits down too. Dad, where do you think Mom is now? Well, he says. There is a moment of silence. Then he takes her photograph and puts it on the table. This is where Mom is to me now, between us, on the table. But she is also in this picture that she painted, and in this mug that she glued back together, and in the chair that she always sat in, and in the coat that still hangs on the coat rack. Mom is in things, and in things is Mom. That evening in bed, Yolanda thinks about Julian and Dad. She takes Bunny, her cuddly toy. Mom made Bunny for her. Yolanda hugs Bunny firmly. It feels nice. Yolanda smells Bunny, and Bunny smells like Bunny. And Bunny smells like Yolanda. And Bunny also smells like Mom. He has Mom's smell, and suddenly Mom feels very close. When she closes her eyes, it's like Mom is cuddling her. Mom is Bunny, and Bunny is Mom. The next day, Aunt Christina drops by. That's Mom's sister. Aunt Christina, do you know where Mom is now? And suddenly there are tears. Yolanda is startled. These are tears of joy, sweetheart. It's heartwarming to me that you ask about your mom. As long as we talk about her, she is still with us. If we stop talking about her and never think about her anymore, then Mom really will be gone. In the rest of the afternoon, Aunt Christina shares stories about Mom. It's as if Mom were with them. Mom is in stories, and stories is Mom. A week later, Yolanda stays at Grandma and Grandpa's. That's Mom's mom and dad. And Yolanda walks into the kitchen. Grandma, where do you think Mom is now? And Grandma wipes her hands on the apron and sits down. She nods and nods, but doesn't say anything. Then Grandma gets up and walks out of the kitchen, and Yolanda stays behind. The next moment, Grandma puts a photo album on the table. She leafs through it and points to a picture. Yolanda looks at the picture, but she doesn't understand. Grandma, why are you showing me a picture of myself? Grandma smiles through her tears. That's not you, darling. That's your mom. Mom is Yolanda, and Yolanda is Mom. Yolanda goes to the cemetery with Grandpa. He is taking care of Mom's grave. Grandpa, where do you think Mom is now? Grandpa puts down his rake and sits on the grass. There is earth underneath this grass, Grandpa says, and Mom is buried in that earth. Slowly but surely, she will become earth again. In spring, grass and flowers will grow from that earth, and to me, it will be like seeing your mom again. In some ways, she'll come back to life, in a flower, in a little worm that sticks its head out from under the ground, or in a delicious apple growing on that tree. Mom is nature, and nature is Mom. Back at the house, Grandpa takes Yolanda to a corner in the garden. Look, honey, the roses that grow over there were planted by your mom when she was about your age. Every year they bloom, even now after she's gone. That's another way that Mom lives on. Carefully, Grandpa snips one of the prettiest roses and hands it to Yolanda. Put it in the vase next to your bed. Then Mom will be very close. Mom is the rose, and Rose is Mom. The next day, the alarm rings early. Willa, Mom's best friend, is taking Yolanda to the beach. To me, your mom is here, Willa says as they walk by the ocean. Where? Yolanda asks. In the wind. You can't see it, but you can feel the wind. It's the same with your mom. You can't see her, but she's still here. Spread your arms, my love. Close your eyes and think about Mom, and then you'll feel her. For a moment, Yolanda forgets everything. Then she feels Mom's arms embracing her. It makes Yolanda feel warm inside. Mom is the wind, and the wind is Mom. When she goes to bed, Yolanda lies awake for a while, and suddenly she remembers her teacher's words. I think your mom is now a beautiful star in the sky, a little star that shines at night when you sleep and watches over you, your little light in the dark. When you miss your mom, look up at the night sky, and you might see her somewhere among all those stars. Yolanda opens the curtain and looks up. And even though Mom is very far away, at this moment she feels very close by. Mom is a star, and a star is Mom. That night, Yolanda has a beautiful dream. She is sitting alone on a bench, and Mom comes and sits next to her, just like that, like she used to do. Hey, Yolanda says, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Mom leans closer and gives her a kiss. That's exactly where I am, my darling. When Dad wakes up and wakes her with a kiss the next morning, Yolanda says, I know where my mom is now. Where? Dad asks. Mom is everywhere.
We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world. Thank you. That was lovely. Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our minds and hearts and who we want to wrap in our love and care. We kindle light this morning for Bob Cook, who suffered a heart attack while traveling abroad. He is recovering and will be home soon. For those suffering from the effects of Hurricane Michael, and a candle in celebration of the death penalty here in Washington State. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here in our hearts this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. Those named aloud and those remembered in the silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world at this hour, we hold in our community of compassion.
Let us take time now for meditation, first in words and followed by silence. How shall we pray? Like the swallow who circles at dusk, counting the day's pleasures before settling for the night. With the sound bees make, a steady hum in the back of the brain, wordless. When desperate, contrition, negotiations, supplications from the solar plexus. By folding laundry as if there were only this shirt, these socks, this task, this singular moment. By kneeling to tuck beans one by one into garden soil, dirtying fingernails, bowing to spirits that keep company with worms. By making poetry, painting, sculpting, any art, giving our all to what sings in the heart. When going for a walk, a run, a hike, thanking the miracle that is our body with each short breath. How shall we pray? By climbing a mountain, turning a prayer wheel, counting beads, facing Mecca, sitting for days? Is there a wrong way to praise? A right way to lament, confess, plead for help? What of eagle? How it soars, one with the air. So good to be with you. I wanted to have my husband stand up, Bob Wilbur. Would you stand up? You know, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it in Spokane if it hadn't been for Bob, who did the laundry, the cooking, the shopping, all of it. Nice to be able to recognize. I never felt like I could start the service until he was here and sitting on the fourth or fifth row, and I would see him, then I was ready to start. Pretty special guy he is. The reading is not one of my poems. It's written by the poet David White, who many of you may know. I think he's a Seattle resident. And he's done workshops, spiritual retreats, and things all around the world, but particularly in Ireland. This poem, I thought, worked for today. Everything is waiting for you. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime, with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. And the tiny speaker in the telephone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. When you saw the name of the sermon this morning, you might have thought it a little strange to have a kettle in the title. The kettle is singing, even as it pours you a drink. You might have wondered what's happened to Linda since she retired. That's a Santa Fe thing, probably. This sermon today is about things of this world and how they speak to us. I was thinking right here, we have these beautiful fall colors brought by Carol Bryant with her loving thoughts for us. We have the chalice, has so much meaning for all of us and goes back generations now. And the Harold Blaze candle holder and the candles of care. This other little one that he made for this congregation. And we have the gong that means so much to all of us, including me, of all the times it's been rung, sounded for services of all kinds, and what it represents of our connection with the religions of the world, the Eastern religions that use the gong more than we do. Everything speaks to us if we let it. I believe that the spiritual experiences that are most readily open to us are the ones in the sights that we see, what our ears hear, our nose, our taste, our feel of things. And these things usually cost us nothing. They're just there for us to access, including the tea kettle. So the writer says, do we act as if living were a one-person show in which we had to play all the parts? We do that sometimes. Oh me, oh my life is so hard, and I'm so lonely. There's a story that is kind of the opposite of what I'm talking about today that I'd like to tell. It's a story of the Fisher King. It's the story that T.S. Eliot's Wasteland was built around. You know, T.S. Eliot was born a Unitarian before he went to England and found the Church of England. The Eliot family, his father, his uncle, were leaders, presidents of the UUA in the early days. So we can claim him, sort of. So he writes of this Fisher King who does nothing but fish. He's impotent. His land has gone dormant. Nothing will grow. It's a sterile time in the land of the Fisher King. And all he does is fish, and even then he doesn't catch any fish. He just sits there and fishes. And it's the land where Percival, the youngest of King Arthur's knights, comes to visit. He's in search of the Holy Grail, the cup that Jesus used to serve the disciples in the Last Supper. And the Holy Grail that means so much through history as the Grail is the thing to follow. It holds the symbolism of the holy or the powerful or the strong or regenerating. You know, a little bit like our cup that we have the light in, our chalice. And Percival sees a woman walk across the main room of the castle, and in her hand she has a cup with a light and a flame beaming, and he thinks, oh, maybe that's the Holy Grail. But he doesn't say, is that the Holy Grail? He doesn't ask, what is this cup? Who are you? He doesn't ask anything. He's too timid, or he's too afraid, or he's too frozen. This story was told after World War, the reason T.S. Eliot used it right after World War I, when England was kind of that dried up country, because they had, so many of its men had died or were maimed or broken hearted or broken in their minds after that horrid war, the First World War, and the country was in debt. So it felt like they had to find their balance and people weren't sure where it was going to be. It was a very hard time, and that was part of the background of this story. So Percival doesn't ask the question, and according to the poem and the story, that was the mistake he made, because the country, the kingdom, could be saved only if you asked the right question, but he didn't. Now, you could really relate that to today, but this is not going to be a political sermon, but I'm sure there's resonance for us today. A study just found that loneliness was the greatest ailment in the country. So we might ask, when did I last experience real happiness? What would fill that empty place in my soul? When has the Grail passed right in front of me and I didn't notice? I was too timid or stubborn or lethargic or numbed or skeptical to notice. Has my life become as dry as drought, rather than green and juicy, inspired, fulfilled? Bob and I now have moved into the center of Santa Fe. We used to live in the country, more or less country, and we had mules and horses and goats and dogs, and we still have dogs, but not the rest. And we've moved, we're more sensible, I guess, for old people. We live in a house in the city. And we live near the Santa Fe River, where we walk almost every day. There are trails all along it. And the Santa Fe River is one of the most endangered rivers in the country. It's actually a dead river. There's no water in it anymore because the river was stopped. The mountain flow went in to fill reservoirs, and that's where we get our water to drink. But every once in a while, in the summertime, if there's enough water in the reservoir, the city will decide to turn on the water, and the river fills up. Not up exactly, but there's water running in it. And it's amazing to watch what happens to the people. As they walk along, they talk about, isn't it beautiful with the water, and look how green the willows have become, and the children splash in the water, and the dogs love to go through it. And people talk to each other about the river. And it's a very happy time. And then all of a sudden they turn it off, and we go back to a dry, arroyo kind of riverbed. Water has been an important symbol universally in religion, as a symbol of the Spirit. Our denomination has our sharing of the waters, the end of the summer travel, and a gathering together, the melding of waters, the gathering of waters. And we also use it in our baptism or really dedication of children, naming ceremony. And water is used in baptism by so many religions. In search of a more spiritual life, people go in many different directions, some extreme. American-born writer and spiritual teacher Thomas Merton walked away from ordinary life to join the Trappist order of monks, the strictest of all monastic orders. He attempted to explain his decision. There is something in their hearts that tells them they cannot be happy in an atmosphere where people are looking for nothing but their pleasure and advantages and comfort and success. They have felt the terrible insufficiency of life in a civilization that is entirely dedicated to the pursuit of shadows. The waters that run deep in silence is a symbol of the Trappist monks. It calls these men to choose a life in which they speak only in sign language. They live in silence and eat only the most modest of foods, things they grow in their own garden, turnips, potatoes, rutabaga, cabbage, lots of cabbage and sauerkraut. Yet they choose this life over living in the world. And turning away is one choice any of us can have. An abundance of orders and practices and exotic ways of life are available to us. But there are examples, too, of people who find their way to make their lives meaningful, living and staying in the world. We all know them. They are people who create and love and garden and sing. They are young, and they are people of all ages. Certainly age is no limit. One time, I was surprised to receive a free book in the mail. It was written by a Unitarian Universalist theology professor whose name was Edwin A. Burt. And he mailed these books to all Unitarian Universalist ministers. I forget how many there are. I think we have 1,000 congregations. I don't know how many ministers we have. And he risked this almost like Percival, who was the foolish young knight. He sent it out because he wanted people to know what he had found. He called it Love, Light, and Life. And he had felt like after all these years of studying and teaching theology, he had found the answers he was looking for. And he was so excited he wanted to share them. And I wonder how many of us even read them. I don't remember reading it. I might have dipped into it, but it was on my shelf for years, probably most everyone else's. So maybe he was foolish, but he didn't care. He had shared what he loved and what was important to him. Carl Jung said, "We moderns are faced with the necessity of rediscovering the life of the Spirit. We must experience it anew for ourselves. It's the only way in which we can break the spell that binds us to the cycle of biological events. Our bodies will decay, we all know that. But we have the power of psychic regeneration within us at any age. Noticing is at the very core of what meditation is. Paying attention to the breath or an object or a mantra. It's often been noted that giving attention to anything is a way of showing love. I wrote a very self-revealing poem recently about the sunsets in Santa Fe. I think the poem is called "The Mountain Turns Blood Red." They're called the sangre de Cristo, the blood of Christ. And they do turn red when certain conditions make the sunshine on them. They reflect it back red at sunset. It's quite beautiful. But how many of these have I ever seen? I don't stop and look at them very often. I know it does that. So I wrote this self-revealing poem. It's just part of it that I'm reading to you. A child's hand, the miracle of 5 tiny fingers, the plump palm, the elegance of nails so perfectly formed. Many things of beauty and deep meaning I have sped fast as if fleeing. The mountain merely does what mountains do when sunset shines its light on them, just so. And I do what I am wired to do, turn to whatever pulls hardest on my shirt tail. But I have paid a price for inattention. So much beauty lost, children grown, and all I have are snapshots. None of us wants to live with regret for all we've left unappreciated, and we don't have to if we become awake and aware of the world around us, if we notice that when the Holy Grail is right in front of us, oh, there it is. Oh, this feels like an experience that is elevated, expanded beyond the ordinary. And I was awake. I noticed it. I took it in. One winter day, I went to see a new insurance agent, thinking we might change insurance. It was a young man. We had a delightful time talking, but his insurance wasn't right for me. But as I got ready to go, it was wintertime, and I had on my long down jacket. And it's kind of puffy, and sometimes it's really hard to get the zipper started at the bottom. So I was working on the zipper, and next thing I knew, the young man was kneeling at my feet. And he said, "Oh, let me help you with that." And I said, "Oh, it's so sweet of you. Thank you. It's so hard to do that." And he said, "Well, you see, my mother died recently, and I can't do that for her, but I can do it for you." I was really overwhelmed with the sweetness of that moment. Some years ago, I discovered that I could sing. I thought I couldn't, but I went to a retreat in Kansas called Brave Voices, and we sang. And I had such a good time singing that I joined the choir of our church. It only lasted like one Sunday of singing through before I was too busy to do it anymore. But I don't know when I've ever done anything I enjoyed so much. And when we were in Transylvania, I was there when a whole group of people from this church went, and we formed a little choir with Debbie, who was there, and I sang in Transylvania. It was just wonderful. I mean, when you're singing in a choir, you're just thinking about staying on pitch and thinking of blending with the voices around you, thinking of making the sound strong enough and the right kind of sound for this particular song. And you're not thinking about the dirty dishes back at home or anything else. It's an absolutely wonderful experience. And I think that's what I'm talking about today, is to live so that you realize what you're part of. Some years ago, Bob came running to the house from a walk. He was so excited because near our house there was kind of a lowland where no houses were built, and it was where we often walked, several acres open. And that area had turned completely purple with asters. Lavender and purple, all different shades. So beautiful. Now, those seeds, I don't know how they got there. We don't have that many asters around. But think of all the aster seeds it would take to do that. And they had been there all the time, but it had rained. And the sun had hit it so just the right temperature, and there was enough warmth, and this was the year for them to bloom. It makes me think that, you know, there are seeds in all of us just waiting for the right conditions to come to life. Unused, unsophisticated energies of which we are unaware. And at any age, we can pick up the spiritual journey and let those things bloom. Robert Johnson, a Jungian analyst who was who has interpreted the legend of the Fisher King, believes the answer to the question, whom does the Grail serve, is it serves the king. Percival learns on his quest for the Holy Grail that the purpose of his life is to serve something else or something else other than himself. It's the lesson humanity learned when we finally figured out the Earth wasn't the center of the solar system. The sun was. And we were just one of many planets and many other things going around the sun. It put us in a better perspective, and it was closer to the truth. And now we have to learn to serve the Earth because we thought we were so important we didn't have to do that. And now we know that we do if we want to continue life on Earth. We must do it to survive. So how do we begin? I saw a cartoon of two monks talking. The first one says, I know I'm supposed to light one little candle, but it's so much more emotionally satisfying to curse the darkness. I think we all feel that way sometimes. We have plenty of things that we can curse. And we know people who are able to live this way I'm talking about, full of joy, busy, fulfilled, their lives rich, not because they have a lot of money, but because they know how to live. Last summer, a year ago, we had the eclipse of the sun, and many people went long distances from Santa Fe. They went north to Wyoming or Montana to see it. And there was such an excitement about it. They talked about how it turned dark in an eerie way, and then the light was different as the light returned, and how awe-inspiring it was. Because they were witnessing galactic power. That's what they witnessed. Something so strong, so much more than the ordinary, that it was spiritual for them. It makes me sad to think how long we have discussed what is spiritual. It really does. It's a wounded word, I guess, because what is it? It's what's right in front of your nose, right in front of your eyes, right in the touch of someone else's hand, and it costs nothing. Haven't you ever sat longer in your car to listen to a piece of music that hadn't finished yet? Or to the last part of This American Life when they were telling a wonderful story? Or one of Joe Biden's talks? I remember doing that once. It's so good, I didn't want to miss a bit of it. They help us, these things pull us out of ourselves and help us remember who we are. They tell us and remind us of what we love and we've forgotten that we love. Just a few weeks ago when I was writing this sermon, I got an email from friends in Ireland. Many of you know I go to Ireland all the time. I'm really hooked on Ireland. I love it so much. I've been there 6 times, and I'm going back next year. I go to writers' conferences there. But these friends are American friends, and they had a Jack Russell Terrier that I had become so fond of. I visited there every year. And it had died. And what the email said, and I knew what it meant even before I realized what it was that the light has gone out of our lives for today. And I knew what they were talking about because he was very old when I saw him last time. But it was delicious grieving that dog. To be really awake to grief and loss is part of it. And we know when we give our hearts away, what is the price we pay? Loss. And that's part of the spiritual journey too. And it can be the sweetest of experiences. I want to conclude with a story that is not mine, from a poem that is not mine, by Naomi Shihab Nye. Many of you know her. Her father was a Palestinian refugee to the United States, and he married an American Swiss woman. And Naomi knows Palestinian language, and she goes there and teaches workshops and leads workshops and works for peace. She's been doing that for a lifetime. This story takes place in a gate A4 in the Albuquerque airport, which is a southwest gate where Bob and I always left to come to this trip from the same place. So it's close to my home. And on this particular trip, the plane was delayed. It was the flight to El Paso. And Naomi was wandering the airport waiting for the announcement that the plane was going, and she heard over the loudspeaker, "Does anyone in the vicinity of gate A4 know how to speak Palestinian?" So she went. And there was an old woman there who, in Palestinian black clothes, and she was sobbing on the floor, sobbing. And they didn't know what to do with her. And soon Naomi, speaking Palestinian roughly, not real well, but enough, found out that she was thinking that the plane had been canceled, and it wasn't going at all, and that she would miss her doctor's appointment for an important treatment, and her son was going to meet her at the airport, and she was having the treatment the next day, so she was sobbing. And when she realized it was just a delay, she changed her mood, and when she met Naomi and she was speaking to her and could understand her, and Naomi said, "Let's call your son and tell him you'll be late." Oh, that was wonderful. And then she said, "Do you have any other sons?" So they called them too. And then she said, "Let's call my dad." So they called her dad, and they found out they had about 10 friends in common. And that made the woman happy. And pretty soon, the woman was getting out cookies from her bag and passing them around, and they were covered with powdered sugar. And everybody was taking them, not denying them, but taking them and eating them. And everybody was covered with powdered sugar, and the floor was covered. And then the airline brought out juice, and the children poured it into cups and gave it to people. And Naomi Shihab Shai said, "This is the world I want to live in." I think it's the world we all want to live in, don't we? The cookies became a sacrament. This is the world not lost. This is a world that says all is not lost. Everything is waiting for you. Show the world a little love and allow it to love you back. Namaste.
I have noticed something over time, and that is that not all of you sing. And especially since Linda has shared her singing experience with us, I would invite you, it doesn't matter if you're in tune. We really need your voice, whatever it sounds like. So please rise as you're willing and able and sing this energizing hymn. I'd like to hear all the voices.
Yes.
You gotta do what the Spirit says do. You gotta do what the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do what the Spirit says do. Spirit
closing words, right?
Yeah.
These are closing words I used for almost every service when I was here in Spokane. They're the words adapted from Julian of Norwich. And all shall be well, and all shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. For there is a love that holds us and will not let us go. Amen.
Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Yes, yes, yes. I just love it. Just oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
How are you? I have a friend of mine that lives outside of Santa Fe, and she bought some land in this home from wood, and there's a caboose on it, a red caboose. You know of that? You don't? Okay.
What's her name?
Her name is Jenny